Well, the Ottawa 67's point streak came to an end this morning. They lost the school day game at Canadian Tire Center by a score of 3-2. So it was a good run for the Ottawa 67's, but they did make that game really close. It was just a 3-2 final in favor of the Kingston Frontenacs. But I do a video talking about the 67's, looking to turn things around, and then the streak comes to an end. But still, I think this Ottawa 67's team is heading in the right direction. Even Stonehouse getting a goal here this morning, a good sign for this team moving forward. Now let's look at some news items, just a couple things to talk about. First off, some fallout from the Saturday game between the Barrie Colts and the Sudbury Wolves. If you were at the game or watching the game on television, with a minute 6 left in the hockey game, there was a bit of a line brawl, so to speak. I don't know if you can call it that. What happened was Chase Coughlin came out of the penalty box for the Sudbury Wolves, and then Cole Dubowski went after him. He dropped the gloves and started wrestling on the ice. And that followed with Evan Passmore also dropping the gloves with Blake Clayton. And it was an 8-minute review. It felt like an unnecessarily long review, considering there's just over a minute left in the hockey game. And it was already an 8-1 score for the Barrie Colts. But the officials wanted to make sure they got everything right on the call, and it resulted in now some more suspensions. On Sunday, we learned that Clayton was handed a 2-game suspension for Sudbury, for an automatic 2-game suspension for a game misconduct for being the third man involved in an altercation. So Clayton's already served one of those 2 games. He'll still have one more game to go. But for the Barrie Colts, we've learned that Dubowski has been handed a 2-game suspension. And it's one is for an instigating a fight in the final 5 minutes of a hockey game, and the other is for this being the second fighting major of the same game. So Dubowski getting 2 games. But what really stands out is that Evan Passmore has been handed a 5-game suspension for his role in the altercation, and also for breaking the OHL bullying policy. And this is the statement from the Ontario Hockey League. Bullying in the OHL is an incident in which a player demonstrates an act of repeated aggressive physical behavior towards an opposing player who chooses not to respond to such actions. So that's the 5-game suspension handed out to Passmore. Although, when you read it like that, it's Clayton was handed a 2-game suspension as a result of the third man in. So it's kind of, I have little questions. I understand why Passmore was suspended, but I think the wording seems a little odd, since Clayton was also assessed a suspension for being in an altercation. But that's the league has made their decision, and these players will sit their games. The one thing, though, that I kind of felt needs to be addressed is how long some of these reviews are going for. 8 minutes to solve this, when clearly the players that, like Dubowski going after Chase Coughlin, that's an automatic. He should have been sent off the ice right away. And then seeing Passmore and Clayton dropping the gloves as the second fight on the same play should have been taken out right away. Those 2 were, but Coughlin and Dubowski ended up in the penalty box. The referees were on the tablets. And like I said, it was an 8-minute review for the end of the hockey game, when it was an 8-1 score. At that point, I think everyone was already starting to make their way to the exits who were in the stands. But other than that, I'm glad to see the OHL has come out with a statement explaining the suspensions. I think this is something that is a great step for the Ontario Hockey League, just being more transparent when it comes to suspensions and explaining why players are being handed the suspensions that they are. So again, just going over it, Blake Clayton, he received a 2-game suspension of the Sudbury Wolves. Cole Dubowski also handed a 2-game suspension, and Evan Passmore handed a 5-game suspension. Now, the other news item to talk about is the fact that the city of St. Catharines is 100% behind a push to host the 2027 Memorial Cup. Now, you'll remember the Niagara IceDogs, they did put in a bid for the 2024 Memorial Cup, which ended up being held in Saginaw, Michigan. But the city of St. Catharines putting their support behind their OHL club, saying they want to see the Memorial Cup held at the Meridian Center. The Meridian Center, of course, celebrating its 10th anniversary this season, so quite the milestone for the city of St. Catharines. And for Mayor Matt Siscoe, he's on record saying that he believes the Meridian Center is a top-notch facility to host an event such as this, and City Council is putting their full support behind Niagara when they do put in a bid. Obviously, you can't put in a bid just yet because the 2025 Memorial Cup is in Rimouski, Quebec this year. Next year, it's in the WHL, and there's 5 bids for the Memorial Cup next year, so they still have to figure out who's going to host in 2026, and then we'll find out who will put in a bid for the 2027 Memorial Cup. If you're curious for 2026, Brandon, Medicine Hat, Lethbridge, Kelowna, and Spokane are the 5 teams putting in a bid to try and host the 2026 Memorial Cup. And as it stands right now, when it comes to the OHL in 2027, we know for sure Niagara is going to put in a bid, and all signs also point to the Kitchener Rangers submitting a bid. So it is nice to see more teams are now wanting to host the national tournament to decide the CHL champion, as there were some years where you'd only get maybe one team putting in a bid for the Memorial Cup. But now it seems as though more teams are interested. I'd like to see Sault Ste. Marie maybe consider putting in another bid. The Oshawa Generals at the Tributes Community Center, they have a beautiful arena. It'd be great to see the OHL get a chance to host a Memorial Cup there. And also in Kingston, they're another team that put in a bid. They've got a beautiful facility. So the facilities in the Ontario Hockey League, top notch to host this Memorial Cup. Obviously, there's some facilities that are not up to code for hosting an event such as this, because they want to have a certain amount of revenue brought in. And of course, with that comes with seating capacity. Because if you look at the seating capacity of the Meridian Center in Niagara, they host 5,300 spectators. So 5,000 seats seems to be the benchmark for a team hosting the Memorial Cup, at least when it comes to the OHL. And I believe the Meridian Center would be a great spot to host the Memorial Cup. Then it just comes down to, will the team be competitive enough that year? Because right now, Niagara looking great in the Eastern Conference, still top spot in the Central Division. But if you're going to look to host the Memorial Cup in 2027, you kind of want to point the team to be competitive that year as well. That's what the Kitchener Rangers have been looking to do. Obviously, they're now tops in the Western Conference, but steps have been taken. If you look at the Kitchener Rangers' track record with trades, obviously the move of Carson Rakoff to Brampton, I think, kind of signaled the fact that they're looking to the future. But a lot of planning behind the scenes when it comes to teams and management. But I thought it was interesting that the mayor of St. Catharines has come out to say that City Council fully supports a bid for the Memorial Cup for the Niagara IceDogs. Let me know in the comments section down below your thoughts. Do you think Niagara would be a great candidate for the 2027 Memorial Cup, or is there another team that you think is deserving of the chance to host the Memorial Cup? Love the interactions. I thank you very much for everybody who's been tuning into these videos on a regular basis. I know there's some that tune in who have not yet hit subscribe, but that's okay. These videos are meant to be a way to spark conversation about the Ontario Hockey League. But if you want to hit subscribe, I greatly appreciate it as this channel continues to grow. So again, thank you very much for all your support. Talk to you again soon.